Hello friends, the article which we are analyzing today is published on Hindu July 24th. The title of the article is Towards National Security and Peace in Hong Kong. The author of this article is Sun Weidong. He is a Chinese ambassador to India. So the point to remember is that the author of this article is a Chinese ambassador to India, and he is writing about his perspective, his country's perspective of this enactment of law, which is basically for Hong Kong. So here the author is conveying the argument why China has brought this law and what are the effect of this law going to happen. So first we'll analyze what the author has written about the motivation for bringing this law, this enactment of law on safeguarding national security in Hong Kong special administrative region. So here author has first talked about motivation for bringing this law in Hong Kong. So what we see that of late Hong Kong was caught in unrest, violence and protest. This happened due to a amendment bill, where this any Hong Kong citizen can be sent to China for any crime. More or less the idea of that amendment was like that. So for that reason there was a protest. So separatist act and serious violent incident happened over the amendment bill last year. And another point which author is talking about here is falling economy of Hong Kong. Due to this unrest and violence which is happening in protest of that amendment bill, Hong Kong economy got the beating and Hong Kong lost the title of world freest economy, which it held for 25 years. So the title of free economy it lost, which it was holding for almost 25 years. And GDP also registered economic growth, and that also happened first time in last 10 years. And another point which author is saying that unemployment rate also hit a record high. So these incident which was affecting Hong Kong has considered seriously by China, because these incident to them it highlighted a big national security loophole as per Chinese perception. So why this is so? Because Hong Kong earlier it was under British, which was transferred to China under some condition, that under certain policy. That policy was one country and two system. So due to that reason we see that Hong Kong was enjoying autonomy and their political and administrative system was different compared to what we see in China. And because of that Hong Kong was able to differentiate itself legally, politically from China. So this was the policy of one country, two system. China considered this recent turbulence in Hong Kong as a threat to the policy of one China, two system. And this unrest and violence also considered in China as a security loophole. So for that reason, to strengthen that the model of one country, two system, a law was enacted for the purpose of ensuring the resolute, full and faithful implementation of policy of one country, two system. So what author here is trying to say that this law related to national security in Hong Kong was basically done to resolutely and fully and faithfully implement the policy which was there in the beginning, from the beginning, and that policy is one country, two system. To strengthen that policy and to implement fully that law was enacted, and to deal with the falling economy and the violence and other separatist tendency in Hong Kong, this law was made because this was considered as a security loophole in China. And China also considered all these things happening within Hong Kong is an internal affair of China. And China, as per author, China will not tolerate any foreign interference to its internal affair related to Hong Kong. So there is a protest for this law of China to deal with Hong Kong related issue. So for that, author is saying that national security legislation belongs to the sovereignty of a country and authority of central government. So what author is saying that China is within its own within right, being a sovereign country and having a legal authority to control or to legislate any, to deal with security issue which is happening due to violence in Hong Kong, because other country also make use of their sovereignty and their authority to legislate for any issue which is having a relationship with their security. So China is doing the same thing because China consider this unrest in Hong Kong as a national security threat, and for that reason China is within its own right to make a law, and that law is, purpose of that law is to strengthen the policy of existing policy of one country two system. And for since China consider Hong Kong issue internal affair, so China will not tolerate any foreign interference. So here we see the motivation for bringing this law to deal with Hong Kong unrest, violence and protest. Author has given an argument. So what are the effect going to happen of this particular law which was implemented in Hong Kong? So here we see that this legislation, as per author, plugs the legal loophole and provide strong institutional and legal safeguard for national security in Hong Kong. So as per author, this law is meant to plug the loophole and provide a institutional and legal safeguard to national security of Hong Kong as well as China. So this is done keeping that thing in mind. And this law is enacted in accordance with Chinese constitution and in compliance of basic law of Hong Kong. And this legislation will guarantee the sustained implementation of one country two system policy. It will not affect a capitalist system in Hong Kong and high degree of autonomy which Hong Kong enjoy. It will also not affect the legal system, independent judiciary of Hong Kong. So here author is trying to say that this enactment of legislation will not affect the existing policy of one country two system, and it will not affect the economic system, economic model which is a capitalist model of Hong Kong, and political model where the Hong Kong is enjoying a greater autonomy, and along with that it will not affect Hong Kong's legal or judicial system. So this way the author is reassuring that legislation is not going to affect anything thing related to the point discussed here to Hong Kong. And another point, author is saying that this legislation will protect the lawful right and freedom of Hong Kong resident, including foreigner. So this legislation will not take away Hong Kong people's right and freedom, but rather than it will protect and safeguard their long-term prosperity and bring stability in Hong Kong. So here author has given an argument that what are the beneficial change or effect of this legislation will come in Hong Kong. And again author is saying that the move of China to bring this legislation in Hong Kong is supported by general public in Hong Kong and also by international community. And author is saying that international credit agencies also looking favorably to this thing, and again reposing their confidence in Hong Kong. And author is saying that India should understand, respect and support this Chinese move of enactment of legislation in Hong Kong to safeguard their national interest. That act of China should be respected and supported by India, because it is happening in accordance with the law. So here if we analyze this thing, the basic motivation for China to bring this legislation, because Chinese consider this uprising or a kind of protest which happened in Hong Kong as a national security threat. Because you have to compare, you have to know the background of Hong Kong, and you have to see the political economy of Hong Kong and the way governance or political culture exists in China. So being a more autonomous, being more open society and free society, Hong Kong people are free to protest, which is not there in the China. So people there protesting in Hong Kong will somehow give the message to mainland China, and people there also can do the same kind of thing. So this is a big threat to Chinese establishment. So that's why to suppress, somehow kill this initiative of Hong Kong people, they brought this legislation so that they can suppress the protest and target those who are in the forefront of protest. So this is the basically motivation of China, to stifle the voice of people. And any support of Hong Kong by international community, particularly if we see the UK, US, that is China is considering as a interference in its internal affair. So basically we see that Chinese motivation is basically to suppress any democratic, any free voice within its jurisdiction, maybe whether it is Hong Kong or their own mainland country. And here, since the author is a ambassador of China, he has mostly told about the positive aspect of this legislation, but any educated or any intelligent reader will understand the real motive of China behind this legislation. So this concludes the analysis of first article. The second article which I am analyzing is a editorial. The title of the editorial is Calibrated Balance. This editorial talks about recent statement of External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar, where he told the India's worldview in the face of global challenges. So, what Foreign Minister has told that non-alignment movement, he mostly talked about on three aspects. First of all, this non-alignment movement. Second, about military alliance, and third, about multipolar world. So related to non-alignment movement, what foreign minister has said that this concept of non-alignment alignment movement is an old concept, and this concept belonged to bygone era, which is no longer valid. At one time, when this Cold War between US and USSR was happening, that time NAM has a certain validity and India played a stellar role in that. But now that things have changed and that concept is no longer that much attractive to India. So that is the focus of NAM is somehow got lessened. The second thing is that since because of in earlier India's foreign policy, mostly it was not taking a stand against anyone, either in for or against. It was taking some middle ground or some moral high ground. That type of foreign policy India earlier used to have, because taking hard decision or in a particular one-sided decision had the cost which India wanted to avoid. So the mostly the India's decision will be on moral high ground, which is good on both sides. So that policy, what editorial is saying that as per our foreign minister, that policy is no longer sustainable, and now India has to take a side, and for taking a side means India has to take a definitive stand for any contentious issue where the two parties will be there. So the middle ground or some moral high ground will not be workable there. So India has to take a side here, and India has to take a definitive stand here. So which is against what India used to do in during the time of non-alignment movement, because being neutral is no longer a choice available to India. So India has to take a definitive stand, one side stand for any particular issue. And again, the difficulty to remain non-aligned or neutral is also because now we see that there is again Cold War situation is building up between India and between US and China. And since China is India's neighbor and our boundary disputes are there with China, India will be forced to take a stand. So because you know that how Chinese aggression is there, so in that case between US and China dispute, since we are relying on US for support against China, so similarly between dispute between US and China, same reciprocity we have to maintain and we have to support US. So that's why the being neutral or being non-aligned in case of Cold War situation between US and China, remaining neutral or non-committal will not be possible for India. So in this regard, we see that increasingly Indo-US cooperation in many fields are happening, and maritime collaboration already started, which again is to be converted into in the field of army, but that is not happened so far. And in recent dispute between India and China, US called to jointly counter China. US has made a call to jointly deal with aggression of China. So this is the thing we are seeing, that India is now increasingly will be forced to take increasingly sides, and being neutral or being taking a high moral ground will not, the luxury that will not be, no longer be available to India. And the second point what foreign minister has said is about related to military alliance. India was never a part of any military alliance earlier, and it will never be in any alliance. So that is the stated position of India. Same thing has been reiterated by foreign minister. But that doesn't mean that India will not be a part of, will not engage in a multilateral forum. India will engage through multilateral forum, but any dispute will be dealt through bilateral mechanism, not through any military alliance. The same thing India is doing now in case of China and Pakistan also. We see that we deal both the country bilaterally. We do not bring any military alliance or involve third party. So India is not using any other forum but dealing bilaterally to resolve military tension at LAC with China. So the same commitment which India has earlier, the same commitment has been repeated by foreign minister, that we are not going to make or be a part of any military alliance against any other country. But India is a supporter of multipolar world, and India seek to build coalition with middle powers such as European Union and Japan, because that suits to our national interest. That global order, there should be multiple power should be there. It should not be hegemonic, one country is dictating to the whole world, but it should be multipolar world where many power exist together and no single power is in a position to control the whole thing. So for that reason, India is in a favor of making coalition with other like-minded middle power such as EU and Japan. So that concludes the analysis of second article. Third article which I am analyzing is deepening Indo-India-South Korea tie. It is written by Lakhvinder Singh. So here, if we see the relationship between India and South Korea, so this relationship is not flourishing. It got stuck as per author. And trade, investment, military relationship also, not much improvement is going on. And trade also got stuck to say $22 billion. So the reason as per author is that India and South Korea failed to strike a chord in relationship. So the kind of relationship which India should have with South Korea and vice versa, that relationship did not flourish in that line. So the reason why it happened, author says that cultural prejudice is playing a role here, because the South Korean consider India as a poor third world country, and similarly Indian people do not have any understanding of South Korea's unique cultural identity, and this is due to lack of people to people relationship. And since this lack of relationship between people to people, there is a lot of information gap between happening of South Korea in India and similarly happening of India in South Korea. So to solve that problem, what we need to have a more cultural exchange between India and South Korea. And in that line, institution like Indian Cultural Center is playing a very important role, which is established a decade back in Seoul. But here also author says that this cultural center is catering mostly to the requirement of elite English speaking South Korean. but the need is that this center should focus on to the common man of South Korea, because that will bring the energy to India and South Korea relationship. So this is the situation of relationship between cultural relationship, people to people relationship between India and South Korea, that need to be improved. And the importance of improving that relationship is more because we see the growing Chinese hegemonic behavior and aggressiveness. And if India and South Korea want to protect their way of life, they should come close together. And that is only sustainable when we develop people to people relationship. And this cultural exchange between two country and this institution, cultural institution in their in between these two country will also help to bridge the gap. So this concludes the third and last analysis of article. I hope these analysis will help you to improve your understanding. Thank you.